Hello and welcome to In for Black Archive. We're back, this time with proper microphones in a proper, not really studio environment, but you get what we mean. We're here to discuss the pinnacle of Chris Chibnall's career, the penultimate Chibnall story, but does it belong on the bottom of the seabed? Or should it become a legend among sea devils? Right, here to discuss this with me, as always, is James Stevenson, and I'm Owen Cranston.
Hi everyone. Did you call this the pinnacle of Chris Chibnall's career?
No. Yes, I did. I don't know why. I don't script things. I just go with it.
Are you saying that The Timeless Children and The Vanquishers are not as good as this?
Right.
Because those are hours of television that deserve to be the pinnacle of really any writer's career.
So, I think doing it this way, because we did the preview of initial impressions in our world yesterday, in the listeners' world a few days ago. We've had a day now to think about this, because normally when these podcasts, when we're reviewing episodes as they air, we do it on the night. We do it there and then. But we've now had 24 hours to think about it. My views have changed on it. Have yours?
I wouldn't say they've changed because I could see what the issues were before, but I think I was masking a bit in the heat of the moment because of how good I thought the ending was good, and so that left me on a nice note. And I thought that the Centenary trailer was so good that kind of made me into a hype state where I kind of didn't worry about the areas because I was in a good mood because of the Ace and the Teague and stuff. Now I've had 24 hours to actually come to it. I can see more clearly what the problems are with this thing. But that's why we do these podcasts, and so we can go in and we can have a discussion about what works about this and what doesn't. And I sense what we're going to talk about is the same stuff we've been talking about on Flux and similar episodes.
Right. I'm going to give this episode credit here. I am quite negative about this story, but let me be clear. It's better than most of Flux.
I agree.
I disagree with how they went about telling it, but there is story there, and it does make sense. I think the story is very much surface level. It's a complete waste of everyone's time, but it is still there.
The story is... The worst way to describe the story is filler.
I worked out the best way to describe this episode.
You worked out?
In tune of the season.
Go on.
This story is an Easter egg.
Oh, God.
To the uninitiated, if you saw an Easter egg, you'd go, oh my God, look at that lovely ball of chocolate. It on the outside looks so good. But then as soon
looks
as
at an Easter egg and goes, what is this?
Someone who's never seen an Easter egg before. But then you crack it open and you realise there's nothing inside.
It's just hollow.
It's all surface level. There's nothing there. And that is our Easter episode.
It was a really long-winded way of saying it was a bit hollow, but yes, it is a bit hollow. I think the story, like I was saying before, is filler in a bad way. But at the same time, I have to give it some credit because they know it's simple and they don't try and make it too complicated. Because I think Chibnall and the other writer of this episode, Ella Road, who's never written for Who before, understand that the main focus of this episode isn't really the story. It's the Thasmin stuff, which is worth a long talk. Mm. So the story doesn't get too complicated that we lose sight of that.
But is it though?
Because I think that was the issue with a lot of Moffat Who, was that you'd have this... It would be about the characters, but not really, because we would have such a complex story that you wouldn't have time to really focus on the character, because you'd be whisked off 2,000 bloody years to the next thing before you got the chance.
The issue is, it's too late in the game to be doing character pieces.
Is it too late in the game to be doing character pieces?
Well, it's the penultimate series, so we want to be getting some closure here. Not opening up new wounds.
I think yes and no, because
it's also a special. I feel like if this was the penultimate in an actual series, it would have been better. But since it's sort of set itself out as kind of like a special, we kind of want a big smashing story to smash in your face, which is good. This felt like a weak story
Yeah.
with weak character stuff.
I thought it was weak character stuff.
It felt bolted on. Like the entirety of this story.
Yeah, you really have changed your view. This is going to be good, I think. I think there's going to be a lot to talk about here. So keep listening wherever you are and wherever you're listening to your podcasts at the moment, because I think this is going to be fun. Where do you want to start diving deep into the sea devils with this?
Shall we start off with the intro?
Yeah, just want to go through the episode kind of
Should
scene
we
by
go
scene.
through the
Because
episode?
it's not too complicated, so we can go through it linearly.
I think they chose the wrong thing to start on.
The devil stuff. And obviously the gem and this kind of awakening of the devil thing.
Yes.
Okay, why do you think that? And then I'll see what I think about it.
I think what I'm going to say here is kind of the issue with this story. It always goes for the easiest route. Always.
Owen, I'm going to stop you right there, and this is why. That is exactly right. That's exactly right.
Like if we look at it this way here, the doctor goes, "Oh no, someone's lost some treasure. Where would it be lost? Oh, I know. Let's go into the future and find it." Like, this is what I propose should have been done. The doctor doesn't go to the past. We know that backstory because it is a perfect cold open. All the stuff they go onto the ship, they see for Sea Devils sort of like taking over the ship. That is an amazing cold open.
Yeah, you could have had that at the start.
Remove the doctor in that stuff there. It's an amazing cold open.
So this is just having Jihan, and obviously and he's telling everyone to get off the ship, so you think it's a mutiny, and you think it's him in league with the Sea Devils, and then you realise later that you thought the wrong thing.
Cut to titles.
Yeah, then the Doctor has arrived, and then they realise the city's being pillaged, or the village, or whatever.
Or even if they just slid what is actually for cold open into the main story part.
Yeah, they could have done that.
Like, and then we kind of have it, the Doctor actually discovering the story of the ship, rather than just going back in time.
Do you know what it does remind me of, that opening? And this is a throwback to one of the first things we ever talked about on Black Archive, actually. You remember when we discussed the formula of Death in Paradise?
Yes.
Where basically Death in Paradise always starts with a murder of just some random person. This is that is that opening. That is the absolute hackneyed, cliched. We're just going to show the inciting incident, and then we're going to roll titles.
Yeah.
There's no originality to it. It vaguely introduces the side characters without giving you anything much. And it doesn't really talk anything about the Sea Devils. It just goes, look, a scary looking thing. That's out now. What will the Doctor do? And it's just very rote.
Yeah, it's a weird story looking back at it. Because I've rewatched half of it. I got distracted doing other things in life, so I couldn't finish rewatching it all. I'm just sat there going like, that bit is pointless. That bit is pointless. Like, if you think, even if they kept it in the same order which they did, and they have the Doctor go back in time, none of the dialogue she said there was needed. That scene could have been 2 minutes.
Yeah, she's a spectator to the scene, so she's not playing an active role. She's just there so we can watch it in a way that doesn't feel like a flashback, which means you can just do it as a flashback. And the best way to do that, like you said before, is do it as the cold open.
Yeah, and she's just sat there going, that's not natural smoke. No shit!
Yeah, it is. There is a lot of that, actually, now you bring it up. You feel like you get handheld through everything in this episode. There's no actual audience... there's no sort of moment where the audience has to think for itself about what's going on. It's all just given to you. Like, it's dished. It's like baby food. It's like open wide, Owen. Here is your plot. Wow. And you eat it.
Everyone oddly seems to know. Like, we're jumping all over the fucking shot here. I know. Just stay with my thought process here.
Yeah.
So when we get Dan and what's the kid's name?
Oh, it was not. I do not believe it was actually said in the plot. I was constantly calling him the boy. I believe his name is Ying Qi. That's what Wikipedia tells me.
Right, so... And they go... And I seem to remember the dialogue going something along the lines of this. There's no crew here. Yes, I was just thinking that.
It's like, clap, clap. There's 2 lines you've wasted. We can see there's no crew.
Like, it could have even been done like... One second. Where is everyone?
Someone could have even just gone, this is a bit odd.
It's a bit eerie, isn't it? And just like... And then they just start chucking in things for no reason, which, from what I can tell, is never resolved. Why is there a massive beast in the sea?
Oh yeah, that is never resolved. That's just it's just a rip off of the Kraken from Pirates of the Caribbean, isn't it? It's just a straight rip off of that, and it's like, oh, that's a sea devil. Just accept it.
It's just there.
Like we don't know whether it's controlled by the sea. Like it's never actually made that clear. Like you have to assume it is because, take a leap, but you shouldn't have to take that leap. Isn't it bizarre that they spoon feed you half the story and then they drop in this massive, great Kraken for no apparent reason? Doesn't really play a role in the story other than to eat the TARDIS up for a sec, and then it's just never explained.
You said last in our sort of preview airport special, it feels like the pacing was very rushed.
Yes, this is a point I very much still am thinking, and probably worse now.
But the thing is, it seems to be rushing between nothingness.
That's why it feels even more rushed.
I said during our recording when I was listening back to it, something along the lines of, it feels very short. It doesn't feel like we've got as much content as we would normally get of a Russell T Davies story. It's because it's all fluff. I said we've got good side characters. Do we? Like, what sets for Pirate Queen? Why are we using this real life figure? For Pirate Queen, nothing relevant to the Pirate Queen is in there.
Yeah, it's just that's a real pirate figure, and then we invent a story around her. And then we also have the boy who exists to be a boy, as far as I'm concerned, and then he just gets looked after at the end. And then there's the Ji-Hoon guy, who is admittedly cool and is a thirst trap, but other than that, it's not like the characters have 3 dimensions, is it? They just kind of exist to do a role and nothing else. Like they do the role fine, but beyond that, it's definitely not like we've obviously, if you haven't listened to our podcast before, we go through the classic episodes, and we've been finding in a lot of the ones we've done recently, you get these really complex side characters. Like we've had a couple of Lethbridge Stewart lately, and Lethbridge Stewart's wonderful whenever you check in with him.
Yeah.
So it's just the complete opposite in the Chibnall Who world.
So I realise it has just been 10 minutes of me just ranting.
No, that's absolutely fine. This is why we're here. We're having a conversation like this. So I'll do some ranting to counterbalance it out.
Yeah.
I'll do some fun ranting. So, like you were saying, it's Legend of the Sea Devils feeling rushed. The problem is, from a writing standpoint, is that all of the information is given too quickly. Mm-hmm. It's so quick and it's so easy to get the information that half the story isn't the story, and it has to be padded out by the Thasmin stuff. And it's having to fill in because we're rushing. Like, if you think about the first 10 minutes of the episode, we have your 2-3 minute cold open thing. Now we've incited it and we're off. Doctor arrives, yada yada. They have a laugh about Dan and his suit. Now a village has been, sworded to death while that was going on. They get there and they find out the stuff with the statue. And then they have this long exposition conversation where Madame Chang literally tells you all of the things you need to know in the plot, pretty much. Like, all of it. We're 6 minutes into the episode, and we know everything we're going to need to know.
Yeah, everything is handed to you on a platter. But...
just like, boom, here you go. And, even the boy knows everything about the duty, apart from what it's necessarily for. So everyone knows everything. Instead of the characters going out into the story and finding out the stuff, we just wait for characters to turn around and go, oh, that's a piece of information you might need. Let me tell you this incredibly detailed Wikipedia-style blog post entry about it, instead of giving you an actual plot. This was a big issue in Flux, where characters would just come out and just say stuff all of a sudden. Oh, that's why. We go, well, why haven't we gone and have a scene for that, instead of you just telling me?
It's like into like a role playing game. You've got the NPC character, which you just walk up to him and he goes, "Over on the hills there is a wolf. That wolf kills my chickens. Please go create a barrier to save my chickens."
Was that a real life encounter you had with an NPC that inspired that bit?
Yes.
To be fair, I think the NPC metaphor really does extend to a lot of these side characters, because they've got about as much going on as an NPC.
And it's weird, like, you've got the bad guys of being the Sea Devils, but
they don't do anything.
And also, I said the ending was good. This ending is very similar to another episode we've watched.
Tell us.
It's one we haven't reviewed because it was before we started this podcast. How did the Timeless Children, the episode, end?
I'm getting your point. It's similar to that.
There's a big red button. The Doctor needs to push it to save the world. But oh no, wait! A side character we don't really care that much about has rushed in, and he is going to press the button and save the world and sacrifice him. They do it. The Doctor runs off and goes, "Well, hey! Oh no, we lost this guy we don't really care about. James is frozen. We've lost James. Oh no!" We actually lost James. We've lost James. Right. James is back. How much of my rant did you hear?
Barely any of it. Like it literally just cut. And yeah, so I think we're gonna have to cut back in where you were starting now, I'm afraid.
What was I even ranting about?
We were talking about the ending of The Timeless Children.
Oh yeah, The Timeless Children. So, do you remember how The Timeless Children ends? Not the arc, the episode.
Yes, it ends with the big red button, and the Doctor's got to pick it, but then, like you said, like the side character arrives.
Whee!
And we're good.
And the Doctor runs off and goes, "Oh no, look, we've lost our friend we've only just met. But don't worry, we can reflect. We can improve." He sacrificed himself for a good cause. Well, hey. Doctor Who endings. This episode is so weird because it's got all the rights to be a good story.
But it's the lazy handling of it. It takes good bit elements and uses them in the like get out of jail free way, like the easy route to securing the money way. It doesn't think creatively with them. And what you get is the elements dished out as they are in the route that you would expect.
Yeah. And there's just things in there which just don't... Its existence just doesn't make much sense. Like when they land for seabed, the Asm Doctor, it's a beautiful moment.
Yeah, that's actually lovely. I think it's well handled. Like in isolation.
It's undercut by just unneeded dialogue. Like, don't open that, the water might flood in. But he has been with the Doctor for over 2 years at this point. She knows which you can go in space and so it doesn't
why would
get
water
sucked
be
out.
any different?
And we as the audience would just go, "Oh, it's retarded, isn't it?"
Yeah, but we have to have this whole... It is just the Yaz asking stupid questions problem that we've had since day one and will never end. And Yaz will ask stupid questions up until the regeneration, where she will be allowed to ask them, I guess.
Yeah.
Or she'll be dead. Either way.
Yeah, it's a weird episode.
Here's a question. Outside of the obvious Doctor and Yaz stuff, because we can talk about that later. Dan Lewis. Do you remember Dan Lewis?
Yes.
He travelled with the Doctor and Yaz for a small period of time. Was also involved in a sort of homoerotic relationship with a dog as well. Ring any bells? Because I haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah,
Where's he gone?
it's weird because he's got the right to be doing interesting stuff here. I think it's for needless splitting off and for to do that future hopping stuff.
Yeah.
So they're doing future hopping stuff, and you can't just have Dan because he doesn't have the ability to go do anything by himself, really, because he doesn't have the information.
Yeah, so
And he
Dan's
doesn't
just carted along by this boy onto Madame Chang's ship to do pirate stuff. And it's solely so the Doctor and Yaz can have these scenes. Like, because obviously Dan can't be there to have the scenes. So Dan is treated like a story obstacle for the entire hour.
Yeah, and there's no urgency from him to go work out what these Sea Devils are doing.
Yeah, he's just like, well, I've got nothing else to do. Like, he's not a motivated character for any of this story.
No. None of them
doesn't
are.
have a reason to be there.
No.
He calls Di at the end. Frankly, I thought they'd have just said that Di was dead and never explained it. I thought that would be a Chibnall thing to do. I guess it's nice that Di's alive.
Yeah,
But that like little half scene was almost like a desperate attempt for Chibnall to remind us he's a character. He's a character. I haven't forgotten about him. Don't worry, even though he's forgotten about him for 45 minutes before it.
Yeah.
He's put him in a stupid costume and said, "Oh look, it's funny," and then he's made him kill 5 Sea Devils with a cool sword because it's funny.
Can I also just say something? That scene at the beginning when they go, "You dressed him like a fool," could have been funny. But I don't know why. But it's played so unnaturally.
Yes, it feels really odd. It feels really half-arsed as well.
Like, I know it's scripted. It's a scripted drama. It's fairly obviously scripted. But it just felt so scripted.
I think one of the issues that John Bishop's had on Who, and I don't think this is his fault, is that I don't think he is a comfortable actor.
But he wasn't the issue in that scene, though, because he didn't really say much, realistically.
Are you saying the issues like Yaz and
It's for Yaz and Doctor.
Jodie sounded really silted?
I don't know what it is. It just feels like there's slightly too much of a pause. They're so slightly too far away.
Yeah.
Like it feels like something which, if they were kind of coming out of a TARDIS, just kind of having a giggle to themselves, going, "Why did you dress him up like that?" And then he comes out behind them. It just feels like a discussion they've just had. It's like us spending 5 minutes in a room with each other. I'm wearing a stupid hat. Actually, no, let me rephrase that. We're still in a room with me, you, and our university friend, let's call him Tom.
Yeah.
I'm wearing a stupid hat. We're having perfectly normal conversation for 10, 15 minutes. And you suddenly go, "Oh yeah, but Owen's wearing a stupid hat."
Yeah, as if you hadn't been wearing a stupid hat for the time before I said that.
Yeah, because we've got to assume which
Like,
those
it
two...
became funny when the script demanded it be so.
Like, we've got to expect which they've been stood in the TARDIS together. Or at least in relative vicinity of each other. So they would have noticed that beforehand. Like, if they came out of there just sniggering to themselves and going, "He's wearing a stupid suit. Why did you do that? You an idiot."
But Owen, the TARDIS is endlessly big with infinite rooms. He could have just been in another room, right?
Yeah, he could have been. But equally, it's only got one exit.
That it does.
And how would he know it's landed? And Yaz also know which it's landed. You've got to assume which those two were together while this was going on. But then Yaz goes out with the Doctor. And they've only just landed.
Yeah. But I think, like, not only is that the issue, but I do genuinely believe that John Bishop doesn't react naturally to things as an actor. Or I say naturally, I mean no acting is natural by essence, but it doesn't feel as natural as like a capable actor or someone who's acted for many years would be able to do John Bishop is doing a decent job, I think. He's just not a natural at it, and he does feel out of his comfort zone. And I think what isn't helping that is the fact this character does not have pretty much anything to do other than be scripted funny, which is not really a John Bishop thing.
Yeah, I don't think he was a problem in that scene for me. I feel like it was for writing and for direction. Just made it all feel a bit separated and a bit stilted.
He's fine as a character, but you have to give him a purpose. Like, you have to actually give him a reason to do something. That is rule number one of making a character that's engaging, that you care about, because you want them to get to their goal. So there is no goal for Dan in this episode.
Or a person who he can bounce off like he had with Carvanista. Because every time he was with Carvanista, he was perfect.
Yeah, that's great.
But he didn't bounce off...
He's got the boy Yin Ki, who's absolutely dry.
Yeah, he didn't bounce off Yin Ki, so we just kind of sat with him doing something.
And he gets to say brooding tones about how his father is dead. Which, fair enough, but you got anything else going on? Like, do you got any hobbies? You ever play football?
Yeah.
Do you do something else other than avenge your father?
Actually, on the topic of Dan, it's something which you said earlier. I was going to say it when we were recording our quick podcast, but quite frankly, we didn't have the time, so I didn't really want to go into it and have a debate over it. Him killing all of the Sea Devils in one fell swipe.
I will say, that is funny.
It is funny.
I did laugh.
But it's one hell of a way to just completely remove any danger these creatures can possibly give you.
Yes, it does. That's the game you play with moments like that. Like, you can get a laugh out of it, but it is kind of a cheap laugh because what you're giving up is the feeling of stakes. And if you're trying to come up with something tense, that could entirely undercut your story. I think what's lucky for Legend of the Sea Devils is it never ever feels tense, so it's not like it's undercutting anything. But
like, I feel like if it was just one, like what he did with Sontarans when he's looking for Pierhead, that worked.
You're looking for Pierhead?
That worked because it was one person, one Sontaran taken by surprise. But when you got like 6 Sea Devils stood in front of you, holding their swords, you can't then go, whew, you're all dead, without giving some explanation other than should seem like something to do with his mum, which doesn't make much sense.
Should see my mum.
Like, what? Like, how does that come into it?
Implying that his mother would drop 20 of them. I mean, that's just the Molly Weasley cliche, isn't it?
I accept that when it comes to, like, dealing with frying pans. That's a funny excuse, which makes sense. But where's his mum got a sword?
He's using a space sword. Well, not space sword, a sea sword.
Yeah. Where's your mum got... Why is your mum dealing with swords?
Does she go to historical reenactments on the weekend? Have we just never learned that about Dad's mum? We only had 10 minutes with her, so it would have been nice to have more time.
It's such a weird story.
Shall we talk about the Dr. Yaz stuff?
Yes.
I feel like we need to get into that, and then we can like hype about the Centenary if we want. But do you think? And I asked this last night, but I'll ask you this now, knowing we'll get more depth out of this. How well handled actually is this? Because you said it felt a bit bolted on with the rest of the story.
I think I still stick by what I said last time. The content in there felt good and natural and down to their characteristics. It was I'm inclined to agree with you. It was a good way to enable them to both show their feelings towards each other, but without getting carried away with it. For Dr. Khan said, no, because this can go badly, which is a good way to deal with it, because it means we get that interaction, we get that kind of end to that, not sort of an end, but we kind of get a sort of like a nice conclusion to it, but it doesn't feel like it's in place in the story. That's what I mean by saying it's things bolted on. Yeah,
so you're almost saying that it feels like the story pauses so that this stuff can go on that isn't really relevant to the story, but it's relevant for essentially just Tumblr.
You know how we had the issue with the Village of Angels. The episode, we had the episode, and then we had the Bell stuff, which just kind of seemed like it was just chucked in at random intervals. It's kind of like that, only there's no good story.
Well, there's no story going on really, other than kind of the characters making or exploring this possibility a bit more head on.
Yeah.
And there's not an awful lot of scenes of it. You know, they have the moment, and the Doctor sort of makes this awkward advance, and it doesn't quite land, and so she looks awkward. And it's like a nice, genuine moment. And then both of them kind of wander in their own time, and then you have the beach scene where they talk about it properly. And it's all good. Like, it's all good in isolation. And one thing I will give it credit for is, for the first time, probably in the Chibnall era, I felt that the Doctor and Yaz were real people. Like, that genuinely might be the first time I felt that since Chibnall came in, that the Doctor was a real character.
Yes.
This is a big point I'm going to make, but run with me on this. I think the problem with the Chibnall era of Who is that because it's a female Doctor, Chibnall has written her to be absolutely flawless. Because she has to be brilliant. Because she's a woman, and therefore, by extension, she can't be a flawed character. And you see this in a lot of other things. And it never feels like they ever give her any flaws. And so there's nothing to root her for, because you know she's always going to succeed. It was nice for her to acknowledge that she had pain and acknowledge that she had flaws, because then that makes you root for the character. It makes you think there's a rounded person with emotions and feelings and fears and doubts. Because in the past 3 series, I've never felt that off Jodie's Doctor. And that's to do with the writing.
I disagree, but in a more nuanced way than you're probably going to expect.
Okay.
So I think she is shown to have flaws and be damaged in these particular ways, but the story never gets affected by it.
I mean, in this case, the story doesn't get affected by it either, really.
No. I think she does have flaws. Like we had it in this story here. We've got the fact which the Doctor spends ages just bumbling out random crap. It's a character flaw. For Sea Devil goes, you talk to give you time to think. There's no impact on the story other than that quick line.
But that's the thing, there's no impact on the story from it.
Exactly.
So it doesn't feel like she's ever given any flaws.
Yeah, so I feel
the reason I think it works in the Dr. Yaz stuff is it feels like it has an emotional impact on the character. Maybe not on the story, but on the character that would be lasting.
Yeah, I think she is given flaws, but I don't think the stories allow her to be affected by them.
Maybe that is half true, but I think that the same problem remains, whichever view you take.
Oh yeah, no.
Is that it's always felt a bit too, look how great I am, and look at me, I'm the 13th Doctor, I'm incredibly happy and jovial, and I get myself into scrapes, but it's fine, I just get out because I do.
Yeah, I feel
by what almost feels like sheer dumb luck.
I feel like for times when she has been affected by stuff like that, I'm thinking like The Haunting or Villa Diabati, whatever.
Villa Diabati.
Hell, that episode name is. Like, towards the end of that, when she does get dark, it gets good. But it never happens again.
And yeah, we've never been able to explore it. So it was nice to have the moment. And I also do feel like, on the subject of Yaz, and I said before in the airport special that it's kind of a cheap way to give her a character, to make her interested in the Doctor now, which I still think feels bolted on, and they should have really built this up properly as an arc if they wanted to do it, because they've not built it up as an arc. They've just sort of thrown it at us.
It's what I was saying earlier. It's like, it doesn't feel like it's for time to be doing this stuff.
No, it doesn't feel earned. It's fine, and it's fine in terms of how it's going, and I think it's working, but it doesn't feel earned, and it's definitely come too late to try and develop this now. But it's made Yaz feel a bit more of a character. I mean, I've gone on and on and on about how I don't feel like Yaz is really a character, and in many ways she still isn't. I still don't really see what she did in this episode, because she doesn't make a single choice of her own.
Yeah.
She just follows in behind. I mean, and even when she makes kind of a slightly more direct advance to Doctor, which is the joke to say, oh, that's a character choice, right? It just gets flat out turned down. So in reality, she has no power in it. She's just sort of told, oh, I understand what you want, and here's my reasoning, but no. And so she doesn't do anything in the story, and I can't think of many stories where she has done anything.
Yeah, I think it's a general Chibnall issue. He likes stories, but he doesn't like characters.
That's a great line, actually. He loves a story, loves plot, cannot stand characters.
Yeah, he doesn't, like, he's got these really good, complex stories, but then he shoves characters in there and just doesn't quite know what to do with them.
And he doesn't know how to actually tell the stories he comes up with. They're good as like a finished product. Yeah. I think, oh, that was cool at the end. But
it's like this one here.
The way he gets you there is so lazy.
It's like this one here. If you gave it to me in a one-sentence synopsis, it sounds amazing.
Yeah, right. China, the 19th century, Sea Devils, the Doctor and Yaz having emotional problems. There's good stuff.
But he just
you can work with.
Doesn't know how to deal with the characters, which then means the story can't move anywhere.
Well, he doesn't know how to deliver plot. He doesn't know how to deliver the plot. He doesn't know how to order the plot. He's never done a good twist in his life. There are just huge problems with the way Christian will tell stories. Like we just exposit the story. We don't actually go through it. Owen's got his hand up.
Yes, I just want to say, he can do good twists. He can do good plot twists. He can do good cliffhangers, but he can only do the first half of those things.
Yeah, he can't follow them through. Like when the Doctor gets turned into an angel at the end of Village, and we came out away thinking, that's a really good cliffhanger if they resolve it, and they never really do.
Yes.
They just wipe it away with some bullshit in the first 2 minutes, like we knew we would.
Right, before we go on to the next time discussion, I wanted to discuss something with you.
Okay.
Viewing figures.
Viewing figures. I've not seen the viewing figures for Sea Devils, so I can't comment on them.
Shall I tell you them?
This will be my genuine first reaction to these viewing figures.
I won't tell you for numbers straight away. I'll just give you a bit of hype.
A bit of hype for the numbers.
Yeah. It was beaten by a rerun of the
oh my God.
Antiques Roadshow.
It got beat by Antiques on 2?
Yes. Which got 2.26 million.
Wow. Well, Antiques got 2.26 million.
Yes.
That is absolutely shocking.
Doctor Who got 2.20.
2.2 million watched Who live in the UK.
Yes.
If Russell T Davies had delivered 2.2 million, I think he'd have blown up.
I think this is what I'm.
If Moffat had delivered 2.2 million, he'd have blown up.
This is what I think. This is what I'm just about to go into. A. TV landscape has massively changed since Rusty Davies.
That's true.
And even Moffat. So I don't think comparing them is fair.
Not directly.
Number 2. This is what people seem to be doing, and it annoys me a lot. An episode on Overnight Figures getting 2.2 million is not a showcase of the quality of that episode.
No, it's not. It's never is.
Because if there's no... it's just going to be people who just tune in to watch it. What will be interesting is the 7-day figures when word of mouth goes around. I think...
Yeah, once, and then the iPlayer figures.
I think what this shows, rather than the quality of the episode, is how poor the quality of the marketing is. And how... I don't even think for Dalek was that bad, but it's also quality, particularly in the seasonal run, it's the quality of the episode before.
Yeah, it is. Look, I know you say it's not directly comparable between Davies and Moffat, and you're right. But if you compare it with other BBC drama that gets similar investment or less, that's shocking. Even against the BBC's own output, and the BBC's own output isn't having the best viewing figures at the moment. That is, if that was a new drama on BBC One and that was the launch, it would never get a second series. It wouldn't ever go close with the kind of budget Who demands to make. It wouldn't ever be considered that it could get a second series. That would be talked about as an absolute disaster if it was a new programme.
Yeah.
With that sort of a budget.
But to give it some context...
There's no way to spin that.
But to give it some context, the highest figures of the night were only 3 million more.
What did get the highest viewing figures of the night on?
Britain's Got Talent, opening night.
Britain's Got Talent. I mean, even Britain's Got Talent getting 5 million is pretty bad.
And that's
when you considered what BGT used to get.
But I also think that's when you need to start considering the context of the day, because it was a very sunny day. It was an Easter Sunday, so you were going to be with your family.
Yeah.
We were with our
you
family.
Would think to yourself, I know, obviously, terrestrial television is dying, and we can go on about this all we want, but families are together. I mean, in both of our instances, we were with our families, and it just no one ever seemed to be interested.
It's not
Yes.
terrestrial dying. It isn't the whole picture. Have you heard the picture about streaming?
Go on.
That
We can have a long conversation about the state of television now.
I'm up for that. For people who own online subscriptions, is going down as well. So, I think TV might.
Death of television, full stop.
I don't think it is. I think it's just viewing habits are changing. I understand people might be getting a bit annoyed with how many different subscription services there are now. Netflix is...
Yeah, that was always inevitable. I had this fear when they started to saturate the market 3 years ago.
Yeah, Netflix has started to increase its prices to stupid degrees.
Yeah, for less content as well. I want to point this out. Netflix really doesn't have any other content now than its originals, and its originals aren't particularly... I'm not, hugely hyped to watch them.
So what we're saying, essentially, is that we need to sell off Channel 4 so it can become more like Netflix.
Oh, for God.
Right. So...
Yeah, I'm not even getting into 4. That's I would do a podcast. I would do a special podcast if listeners actually cared enough about this thing on 4, because that is a conversation that needs to be had. Why they're privatising that, I will never fucking know.
Before he rants about that for... as 40 minutes. Let's move on.
Several hours.
I could do. Let's move on to, I think, the biggest elephant in the room, which shows how much of a disappointment this episode was. The fact which everyone is talking about for next time, rather than the episode itself.
Look, it's Doctor Who's fault because they made a good trailer and they didn't make a good episode. But it's a good trailer.
Yeah, it looks epic. I
know it's going to let me down. But the 30-second teaser's good. It's got so many things you want.
I wish they didn't give away which both Ace and Tegan were coming back. I wish they didn't.
I agree with you on one hand because it's not as good for the story, but I also think that Who is in a pretty tight spot, and I think they needed to pull that out. Yeah. I think they needed good news to get people interested again.
But does this mean, because Chibnall is... We're saying which Chibnall's not very good at twists. He's very good at keeping things secret. Does this mean we're going to have more companions come back?
I did read speculation on Twitter about this. I wouldn't rule it out, and I hope that that's true. But at the same time, I remember we mentioned it in the airport special. It's a 90-minute episode, so you don't want to stuff it with too much.
I've just realised
to the point where you don't have any real development.
I've just come up with a theory of what this episode's going to be, and I hope it is, because it could be really fucking good.
Yeah.
Doctor spends the entire episode captured. Her old companions need to team up to try to save her.
Could work, but then on a Doctor regeneration episode, the Doctor does nothing but wait to be saved. That feels a bit cop-outy to me.
Well, I mean, she could still be doing stuff, but I feel But that's going to be a fun way to get all the companions back.
It's a Doctor regeneration story. Really, we should be focused on the Doctor. What it shows, the fact they're having to get old companions back in a Doctor regeneration episode, is how uninteresting this Doctor is. That we're having to pull people back from 40 years ago, in the case of Tegan. It's been 40 years, and they're having to wheel her back out of the closet with cobwebs and all, and clear her off and dust her off and bring her out, because there's nothing else going on.
Yeah.
As much as I'm happy she's back, it just shows that they feel like they need to distract you, because the characters that you're meant to care about, you don't.
I think the question's going to be, once we do see that story, once we can sit down and watch it, will be a question of how much of this is fan service and how much of this is story.
Oh, yeah, just thinking that. If they find a way to make it really satisfying in the story, good on them. If they don't, which I suspect they won't, and it's a fan service thing, like you said, then it's just going to distract from what the story should be about.
I feel like if there is an element of the companions having to team together to try to get the Doctor out of some sort of scrap, I feel like it could work.
I do agree with you that there could be more companions, just because this is, for those of you who don't know, this special's being made for the BBC's centenary. It's 100 years old this year, and they've made Who the big grandstand thing, as it's their longest running show. So you would think it would be a celebration of Who's history, as well as, I guess, the BBC's history, subtly.
Oh, I know they won't, but I really wish it was a Doctor Who story about the formation of the BBC.
Imagine that, a regeneration episode. The Doctor was killed by the BBC. How meta. I mean, they've already done the meta stuff with David Bradley. We can't go back to meta stuff. Not in a regeneration episode.
I mean, wasn't that Thingy's regeneration episode?
Yeah, I know David Bradley was in that, but he was like genuinely Hartnell. Like, it wasn't meta. Like, he was doing Hartnell.
Yeah. I still think that entire...
It wasn't about the meta production of Who in that way. It was a big reference, obviously, to history, but it wasn't like a meta to the production.
I don't think it should be a relation to the production. I feel like it should be relation to the BBC.
But that would be incredibly meta.
It can't be as meta as them showing in the Remembrance of the Daleks the fact which Doctor Who is on the telly.
All right, yeah, that's phenomenally meta. You know, sometimes I wonder, you know, the people who in production design who come up with these Easter eggs and put them in and think, oh, that's brilliant, and people rightfully applaud them for putting in the effort. Do they not realise the amount of problems that causes canonically when they put that stuff in? Because then you have to question, is it on TV everywhere? Is it widely accessible? Do they have different episodes to us?
Yeah. I always do that thing where they start talking about different actors, and when they bring in actors and they go, wait, so does that mean that actor doesn't exist in this world because he's playing this character?
Exactly, yeah. You think about it canonically in the show as to what it means. I guess because it's been running for 60 years, the wise thing to do, of course, would just be to ignore the canon and enjoy it. We are nerds and we don't enjoy things, and so therefore we're going to talk about the canon until it dies, until Chibnall completely breaks it.
And until we end this podcast
he's already destroyed the universe, so...
And let's put an end to the podcast episode before we ramble on any more about speculation.
Man, we could.
And stuff.
What would you give Sea Devils now, then? Now you've had 24 hours to compress.
Probably a 5.
Yeah, go slap bang in the middle.
Because it's not as bad as some Flux episodes. It has story. I don't feel like there's a full... As I'm saying, it's a hollow story with not much underneath the surface, but there is story there.
I'm still going to give this a 6 and be nice, because I think it's a serviceable story, serviceable without being anything more, and the Doctor and Yaz stuff is a positive. It does feel bolted on, but it is a positive, so it's just about in the good. It has positive energy as opposed to... You know what I mean? Like it's on the right side of the bar as opposed to the wrong side. So it's just about good. But it isn't much better than that. And the fact is, the centenary now has got a big problem, because everyone's expectations are now really high. And when expectations are high in the last 4 years, what have they done, Owen?
Been met absolutely perfectly.
That is correct. in a world we do not live in.
But sadly, we live in this world, and in this world, you've got to subscribe.
Sadly, we live in this world.
And in this world, you need to subscribe and listen to this amazing podcast. If you want to get in touch, you can tweet us, Black Archive Pod, or you can email us, blackarchivepod@gmail.com. Please remember to leave some reviews, some star ratings, and all that fun jazz.
Yes, wherever you're listening, do keep listening. We have other episodes if you've just come across us trying to get some Sea Devils reactions. We do Classic Who. We've done near enough 2 Doctors now, so you can trawl back and click on any of those if you've watched one and are particularly interested. Or a title just looks good and you think, oh, that might be funny. Probably will be. We're there. Have a click around.
What episode do you suggest?
We will be back soon.
What episode do you suggest they go back and listen to?
Do I suggest?
Yeah.
We haven't got to... Are there any sea-themed ones we've done in the classics recently? Because I wouldn't recommend Fury from the Deep because it's not a very good...
It's not out yet either.
We haven't edited it yet.
I don't think we have. I mean, like, the obvious one would be Marco Polo, but we also haven't done that because it's not an intact episode.
Yeah, because it's a lost episode. I'd recommend Evil from the Daleks, just so you can all find out about one remarkable man. I won't tell you anything more.
Right, so with that... Let's bring this episode to an end. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye, James.
See you later. Goodbye.